All right, let's get started. We should see several people rolling in. We're approaching at least 100 participants. We'll see how many show up live. Many register in order to just get the replay though. So I don't anticipate the crowd being super huge today, but this is my second episode of my live office hours. And it's here that we answer all things Salesforce. There's a lot of updates coming from Salesforce related to Dreamforce. So I want to update you on that. And then I had a question come in related to Financial Force and the Financial Services Cloud. And so I think that the talk today will be instructive to help you to identify your own industry or niche. It may not be necessarily financial services, but I want you to see how we can approach diving into a specific industry and find resources to learn Salesforce related to that specific industry so that you can go and do likewise with your own niche or your own industry and background. So a few housekeeping items that I would like to do is to get you familiar with the chat functionality. And let me put in the chat a little greeting for you actually, and this will get you to where you're familiar with chat. And then I want to also show you or highlight the Q&A functionality as well. So if you would, please share in the chat where you're joining us from today. That would be great. That gives me an idea of what cities and countries are represented here live. So just put that in the chat there. Hello, Daniel and Michael from Atlanta. Good to see you. So, and then as well, if you do have a question, though, I do ask that you put that in the Q&A section. That's separate from the chat functionality. A few things are because of just Zoom security, I've locked down cameras, so you're not going to be appearing on camera today. We had a little Zoom bombing incident last week, so trying to avoid that this week. And so we do have the ability, though, to open up your microphones if you'd like to ask a question live. And so if you have a question, just type it up in the Q&A section, and I can either just answer it based on what you've typed up, or if you would like to at least appear audibly over the microphone, just put the word microphone at the end or start of your question. That will tell me that you would like to have your microphone turned on. I can request to turn on your mic. I'm not able to turn it on without your permission, but do let me know if you do intend to ask a question and would like your voice to be heard, and then we can go from there. So with that said, that's most of the housekeeping, and I want to dive in before there's any questions that have come in to talk about a few updates from Salesforce as well. So with that, let me share my screen. Let's see how this goes. I'm on a new computer as well. And last night I was teaching my live admin class, and that kind of bombed out for me. And so it's nothing like teaching a live class and having technical difficulties. So on my screen, let me pop into the correct tab here. I've got a lot to share, but I also want to hear from you. So any questions you have related to Salesforce certifications or careers or just cloud in general, just whatever questions you might have, feel free to ask, and I'll make it my best effort to answer. And the plan is to go at least 45 minutes up to an hour today. I typically want to keep it in that time range. And so, but first off, I want to mention Dreamforce. So this year, Dreamforce is virtual. And I talked about this last week, but there's been some updates since then. And I want to share, and any links that I show, I will attempt to share those links in the chat as well. So looks like we got a question that came in from Nicole. So we'll get to that here in a moment. But in the chat, I'm going to share the link for the screen that I'm showing. And Julie Ann, I see you in the chat. I'll be answering your question that you had earlier about Financial Force as well. So stay tuned. And then as well, I'll be sending out a replay later today as well. So, all right, so Dreamforce 2020, it is virtual this year because of the COVID pandemic. And if you go to salesforce.com/Dreamforce, you can sign up. Once you've signed up, you'll start receiving alerts via email related to different events that are happening. Some updates since last week when we were here live together would include that the keynote date has now been set. So this is done by Mark Benioff, who's the co-founder of Salesforce. And that's going to be on Wednesday, December 2nd at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern. And so Mark Benioff is going to be joined by AT&T, Bentley Motors, and others to share stories of how Salesforce impacted various businesses. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk as well about how businesses were able to open back up during the pandemic. And there's going to be as well some personalized meetings with Dreamforce that started yesterday, actually. Now, I've not seen any email alerts about those, so I'm not sure what has already happened. And I think this is a very fluid Dreamforce this year because of the current crisis we find ourselves in. And so there's a lot that's kind of happening last minute. Another thing that's been announced is an event called Dream TX, and this is 4 full days of learning created with you in mind. This is December 14th through 17th. I presume that this will be free. The rest of Dreamforce is free, but this may be a paid thing. I don't know, but there's really scant on details at this point. So do look for further updates from Salesforce in the coming days and weeks as that approaches. So the big news here with Dreamforce, it is virtual. You can sign up by just clicking sign me up, and then we have the keynote set for December 2nd, and then Dream TX for December 14th through 17th. And then as well, another link that I want to share with you is this press release related to updates to Salesforce's Leading Through Change show. And this is a lot of how they're delivering the Dreamforce content is through their live events page, which is at, where is it at? It's in here somewhere, salesforce.com/live. And there's a live session today at, I think it's in a few hours. It's not right now, but today's event, November 10th, is Hilti's Avi Khan, executive board member, on accelerating their CRM rollout in the midst of a crisis. And so there's going to be a lot of talk about COVID and how Salesforce has helped in those regards, okay? All right, so looks like, let me go ahead and answer Nicole's question real quick. She's asking about her next certification after getting admin certified. And I've got a link for you, Nicole, and I'll type that answer actually here. But I have an article, and I talked about this last week as well. Let me find that link. Where is it? Where is it? So the idea here is charting your path as far as your certification journey. And so I'm going to put that in as an answer to you, and you can reference that, and everyone else should be able to see that as well in the Q&A section. And that's where I go into details on which certifications might make sense for you after you get admin certified. Typically people start with admin and then go from there. So, and then as well, let me give you the link for this particular press release that I'm showing on my screen. And that is, and I'll put this in the chat, this particular page. All right, so, and then from there, once you're on, if you go to this page here with this press release related to Dreamforce and the Leading Through Change, there's a link for salesforce.com/live. If you click on that, that takes you to their live page, and you can then watch the Leading Through Change. If you click watch here, it does bring up kind of a landing page for what will eventually become a live stream, okay? So that's how you can check out what's happening today. So this is part of Dreamforce actually going on in just a few hours. And you, if you've been to Dreamforce or watched it before, you might recognize LT Smooth. He's a singer-songwriter, Hawaiian artist. And Mark Benioff always likes having that Hawaiian music and vibe going on with Dreamforce. So that will be the same this year. And then as well, I'm the only person watching right now. So there's one person watching, but you can chat and check that out live. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that. All right, so awesome, awesome. So now let's talk about a question that came in related to Financial Force. And let me read this so you have some context here. So this question came in from Julianne. She's saying, please tell me what you know about Financial Force and the financial cloud. What do you know of the market demand? I have 20 years experience in the financial services for a Fortune 100 company, and left 18 months ago and want to get back into another Fortune 100 financial services firm. I'm thinking having another cert, but specialized may be helpful. And so a few things are, you know, she mentioned specifically a Fortune 100 financial services firm. And I'd known that I'd seen a stat at some point in the past that upwards of 90% of all Fortune 100 companies use Salesforce. And so I looked it up, and it's now 99 of the top 100 companies in the Fortune 100 use Salesforce. And so there's good odds if you're wanting to target a Fortune 100 company, you've got a 99% shot that they're using Salesforce. And that's one reason why Salesforce is so important to your career, is that it's relevant to these very large companies. Now, as you go down the list in the Fortune 500, that percentage is somewhere upwards of 80 to 85% of all Fortune 500 companies use Salesforce. They're just a dominant market player in the CRM space. But specifically with Julianne's question, she's asking about Financial Force, which is an app on the App Exchange. I want to talk a little bit about what I know about that. But as I'm talking about financial services, I realize that in this group here, that a small percentage of you may have that background, but everyone has some sort of background unless you're fresh out of college or high school and have no business or career experience. And so I want you to think or relate to all the different resources that I'm getting ready to unfurl before you today related to Financial Force and Financial Cloud, and relate that to your own industry. And I'm going to give you some specific tools to help unearth implementation guides for different clouds, how to discover which companies use a specific cloud solution, so that you can then pivot and relate that to your own industry and your own background to identify various job leads and to be able to gauge market demand, okay? And all right. So with that said, Financial Force, a few things that you can do. I've got a lot of thoughts on this, and so I'm going to be moving kind of quickly, and there will be a replay available. So just keep up as best you can and not worry about hitting all of these particular pages. But the first thing that I like to do when trying to gauge demand is to do a search on a few different websites related to jobs. And one that I like personally is Indeed. It tends to aggregate jobs from a lot of different places. And there are other websites like Career Builder and Monster and Dice, but Indeed's a good one to kind of gauge the demand for something. So I did a search for Financial Force, which is an app on the App Exchange that lays on top of Salesforce and is specific for financial services. And it is a popular app out there, and I'll show you momentarily on the App Exchange what it looks like as well. Now, I did this search though, and just left the location off, and there's 162 jobs. So that's a fair amount of mentions for a specific app on the App Exchange, that right now there's 162 open jobs. And one of the ones that's highlighted here is a Financial Force administrator. It's always insightful when you're thinking about going down a path of niching down in the Salesforce ecosystem to search for those specific apps or industries that you're looking at in order to see what are the other skills that are needed and technologies that are needed. And some of these will be Salesforce specific, but then you'll see other jobs that are maybe titles that you hadn't thought about pursuing, such as account executive. This is in my area of Nashville, Tennessee, an account executive with Financial Force. And then we see business analyst. This is something that is a good career path for those of you that may want to land somewhere between an admin or a developer, but want to get more involved with requirements gathering and interacting with subject matter experts, for example. But there's all sorts of jobs related to Financial Force here. Now, another website is LinkedIn. And so here is a search for Financial Force. I just went to my own LinkedIn account, search for Financial Force. And then, the main things that come up on LinkedIn just by default are the people that work for the company or the company information itself. Now you've got to filter that down to jobs, and that's what I did here. And I kept the location just the United States, and there's 171 results here as well. And from here, why LinkedIn is important is that this will reveal to you any connections that you have that work for these different job postings. And I do encourage you to be active on LinkedIn very often and connecting with people and updating your profile very frequently, because that is one of the main signals to recruiters and hiring managers. And one of the signals that LinkedIn causes you to rise above your competition is the recency of your updates. And so if you're weekly updating your LinkedIn profile, that's going to give you more visibility, even if it's just adding a period or a comma or just some small change. So with this, though, you see that there are a lot of jobs out there for financial force related experience. And so with Julianne's situation, she has experience with this particular app on the App Exchange and is wanting to specifically target a Fortune 100 company in the financial services space. Okay. So as you can see, there's a lot of jobs to pursue here. Some of these are not necessarily Fortune 100 companies, but let me show you if I can find my tab here. All right, so I did a search on App Exchange, and you can get to App Exchange by just typing in appexchange.com, which redirects you to appexchange.salesforce.com. And I did a search for the term financial, and the first thing that comes up is a list of 533 related financial apps. First and foremost, and at the top of the list is Financial Force, and it is accounting and financial management software. It's an app on the App Exchange. It is a paid solution, and it has 146 reviews and an average of 4.5 stars. So it is heavily used. And then also down here is a Financial Force professional services automation app. So they have multiple applications on App Exchange. And one of their primary competitors, based on just the number of reviews, is Sage Intacct. Now you notice the cost here for some of these that are revealed. Financial Force starts at $420 per company per month. Sage is $5,000 per user per year. So these prices will vary. Workday is another one, starting at $10,000 per company per year. All right. But there are all sorts of applications, but I want to show you and highlight how you can niche down. Now, I'm talking specifically about financial services that may apply to you, but if your background is higher education or healthcare or whatever it may be, that still applies to you. So when you go to the App Exchange, and let me just show you by the link that you want to really look at if you want to really start to target companies for whatever industry you're in, is to go to the consultants tab. And here is where you will find what are known as implementation experts. So I clicked on consultants, and then instead of selecting developers or job marketplace, which, oh, by the way, did you know there's a job marketplace on the App Exchange? You might want to explore that link as well. And that's more gig type work, not so much long-term jobs, but a lot of one-off type of project work that you can find at a job marketplace on App Exchange. But what I really want to hone in on are the consultants listings. And so here is where you click, and this reveals the different partners that belong to the Salesforce partner program. And you can filter down this list of partners by industry expertise. And I'm going to click show more. And along the left here, let's say you are wanting to target financial services. This will identify, as I click financial services and apply filters, it narrows down the list of implementation experts and consultants to a smaller subset. You notice here some of the larger ones: Deloitte Digital, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, of course, and Accenture and IBM. And so these would be more of the Fortune 100 type of companies, or Fortune 500 potentially. I'm not sure where they all rank out, but this will then show you, okay, if I want to pursue a job with an implementation company that does implementations in the financial services space for Salesforce, then I may want to target these specific companies, go to their websites, look for their job postings, and get them on your radar. And here's level 2 specialists. These are kind of mid-tier or small to medium business type of specialists as well. You can even further narrow down your list depending on the, if you're wanting to target a certain geography, you can go by country and even choose a state or province. So for my own example, if I wanted to really hone in, let's see if there's any Tennessee related financial services consultants. So there's a couple of level 2 specialists, smaller companies, and you can get more information on these. Now, why this matters is that I've now honed in on a few local to me companies that are partner companies. Now, with the backdrop of this current pandemic that we have, all companies are trying to wean themselves off of partner companies and grow their in-house talent, and to do less with third-party implementation experts and more with hiring their own people, because it's cheaper that way. So what you can do is you can pursue jobs with some of these companies, but then as well, you could go to this company's website and look at their success stories and their list of clients. And that gives you a list of companies in your area then, at least in theory, or some of their customers. And you could then start to target or look and see if they have any job postings, or perhaps try and connect with people on LinkedIn that work for these companies and say that you're someone local, or you're someone that is pursuing Salesforce and you have certain background or experience in this industry, and just make yourself as marketable as possible. So App Exchange is for more than just apps. That's the takeaway. It is also where you can find jobs in the job marketplace. And also you can gather intelligence related to industry specific specialists by geography and by industry. And that will help you to hone down your target. You can go with, try to get a job with a partner company, and that charting your path article that I put in that I typed out the answer to previously, that goes into how to target those partner companies and what different certifications matter to them. Now, with Julie's question about Financial Force, I've used it a little bit. There is a lot of demand there, but what I want to talk about though is that I think it's safer to look at Salesforce's own solutions now, rather than being solely reliant on a app on the App Exchange like a Financial Force. I don't think Financial Force is going away, but what Salesforce is doing, which is just the nature of things, you will see this is how Amazon is operated, for example, is that they allow sellers to sell products, and then Amazon has visibility in which products sell well. Then they do their own private label products, and they compete against those sellers and end up overtaking those spaces. And it's just the natural progression of things. It's not necessarily evil or wrong. It's a company using the intelligence that they have because of where they sit and what they have access to. And they allow, quote unquote, the wisdom of crowds to determine what are the paths we need to go down. And so with this natural progression of how business works in general nowadays, is that Salesforce is now over 20 years old. And so they've reached the maturity to expand into these specific industries, to where you do now see that Salesforce has consultants that have experience in all these different industries here. And they have made these specific industry cloud solutions that are specific to a certain vertical or industry. And why that's important is because over these past 20 years, Salesforce has witnessed their customers go out and implement thousands of financial services solutions, or higher education or healthcare, for example, and they see some commonly recurring themes. And once you've seen thousands of a solution, you start to pick up, okay, out of these thousands of solutions, the vast majority have these features and functionality. What they do then is they create a cloud offering to make all that available out of the box. And that is a huge competitive advantage. So if I were a Financial Force, I would be looking to try to be acquired by Salesforce, and they probably are. But a lot of these solutions that I've seen or I've been privy to being involved in, like Field Service Lightning, before that was a thing, I interviewed with a field service company that was hoping to be acquired by Salesforce. They were not. Salesforce acquired a different company and made that their field service cloud. This other company that I was interviewing with, they still exist. They were acquired by IBM, but they're competing against Salesforce, and Salesforce is going to win that battle. So I think that when you're looking at niching down into a specific industry, to look at what are the solutions that Salesforce is creating. So that gets us into some things around the financial services cloud. And let me close a few tabs here so I can declutter my workspace and find what I'm looking for. All right, so the Financial Services Cloud, I've got on my screen here the Financial Services Cloud Administrator Guide. There's a lot of resources when you're trying to niche down into specific vertical. There may not necessarily be a certification. That was part of Julie's question, was what would be some other certifications that would make sense? I think that consultant certifications always make sense. There's not a certification for financial services cloud, but there is a Superbadge on Trailhead as well. And so let me give you some links here. So first of all, the one that's on the screen is this financial services administrator guide. I want to show you how these admin guides work as well, because there will be these admin guides or implementation guides for just about any vertical you can think of. It's just a matter of Googling and looking for it. So in the chat, I'm putting the link to this financial services cloud administrator guide. And this is the HTML version on my screen, but you can download a PDF and you click on that. In my case, it opens up in my browser, and I can open in Acrobat as well, but they have a release or an update to all these documents that they create every release of Salesforce. So this is the Winter 21 release of the Financial Services Cloud Admin Guide. Now, just know that there's corresponding admin or implementation guides for Health Cloud, Higher Education Cloud, and you just got to Google it. Okay, I don't know of a place that has a list of every single document that the documentation team keeps up with Salesforce, but these tend to be pretty behemoth in nature, but there's some great information here and some of the things that may be insightful for you to understand. And why this is important, since there is not a certification, is that how do you get experience in Financial Service Cloud without having a job in that space? Well, you can peruse the admin guide and learn about the data model, for example. And here's the data model for Financial Service Cloud. And you see that there's this Financial Service Cloud managed package. And so with these different cloud offerings, typically there's always a managed package behind the scenes that you install in your org. And so what you can do to get hands-on experience is that you can spin up a free Salesforce account, either your existing one, like a free developer account, or just do a new one specific to whatever cloud you're wanting to learn about, because you will not mess up the data model, but you will fundamentally change the data model as you install the Financial Services Cloud data model. And here's some other managed packages and diagrams, and I'll actually show you a few other things related to this. So this link here is a link to where you can download the Financial Services Cloud package, and I'll put that in the chat next. And when you click on that, which don't install this if you care about your org, okay? I'm warning you, it will mess up your data model. But I've started the process. I'm not going to complete it, but I've started the process of installing this in an org. I've got to click through to confirm, but if you've ever installed something off the App Exchange, it's the same type of experience. And what I did was I just clicked on this link here, install the Financial Services Cloud. And then there's also an extension for the Financial Services Cloud. But the idea here is I wanted to show you all the changes that would be made to your org if you install this. There's all these new custom fields. There's 580 custom fields that are installed and on different objects. And then what else we got? Just scrolling through. There's some custom permissions. 64 custom metadata records and 12 permission sets, 15 custom tabs, and 206 pages. There's lightning pages, Aura component bundles, and Salesforce has done a lot of work on this, okay? So, and then 49 custom objects introduced as well. And this all has to do with functionality for financial services, validation rules. The list goes on and on and on and on. So the point of this, though, is this is a way that you can get hands-on experience with Financial Services Cloud, so that then when you're going on an interview, you can say, oh yeah, I've implemented Financial Service Cloud. It was more for my own learning or for an app that I wanted to build for personal use or whatever it may be. But you can actually speak to the data model, how it changes when you install, and a lot of the verbiage around that specific solution. So whatever your industry is, you can always look for what is known as an implementation guide or an admin guide. And usually you can find that and work through that. And there will be links to install, to troubleshoot, data model diagrams, the whole 9 yards. Now, I did mention that there is a Superbadge. So I want to show you a few things on Trailhead. And Jeff, this is recorded. I hope I'm recording. Yes, I'm recording. Whew. Yeah, boy. Yes, it is. It is recording, right? Yeah, it's recording. It's got to be recording. It better be. So you got me doubting myself now. So, but it is recording. And I will be distributing this later. So this is a module for Financial Services Cloud Basics. Now, remember, this may not apply to your industry, so just think outside the box. If it's healthcare, higher education, whatever it may be, there's probably some Trailhead modules on this. And then as well, there is a Financial Services Cloud Specialist Superbadge. This takes approximately 10 hours, and this is the closest you'll come to getting a certification, at least for now. There may eventually be a Financial Service Cloud Consultant certification, but it wouldn't hurt for you to get this Superbadge, because this would take you through all of these different prerequisites, and it would give you a lot of hands-on experience. And then probably in here as well, it has you go through the process of installing the Financial Service Cloud managed package into your Trailhead org or one of your learning playgrounds, okay? So that is that. Let me put those links in the chat as well. So Julianne, when you asked your question, you probably didn't think I would talk this long about an answer, but I think just in general, you've got the Financial Force experience. So I think it's now time to pivot to Financial Service Cloud so that you have more of a broad experience. You've got the experience with the specific app on App Exchange. So now focusing on Salesforce's own solution, because that's where they're heading. That's where they're going to put their resources. And I think that's where the growth will be. But here are a couple of Trailhead links in the chat. And I'm including I have like a numbered list that I'm going out of order on. So that's why it says number 6. All right, awesome. So yes, Jeff, you got in my head. I hope I'm recording. So sometimes I'll actually record a voice memo on my phone in case the audio goes out as a backup, but sometimes I forget to do that. That might be a good thing to add to the task list. I've got these lovely lists on a note card that my lovely wife is converting into a digital format. So yeah, I know it's funny. I teach Salesforce. I'm like, oh, we got to have everything digital in the cloud. And then I rely on a 3x5 note card. So true confessions. So Kshagra has a question. Let me stop sharing for a minute, just for grins. And because there's no need to look at my screen while it's just sitting on that Superbadge, I suppose. So Kshagra asks, I wanted to know your perspective on what role is JavaScript going to play in the coming times of Salesforce. So I think it's going to become more and more important, especially for Salesforce developers, to learn JavaScript. And there's been a lot of changes in the development space in the past couple of years. Salesforce is doing their own development tools, such as Salesforce DX. My son Anthony has a course on that, by the way. And then as well, I'm thinking back to when I was going down this path of learning Salesforce development. This would have been 2012, 2013. There was just strictly Apex and Visualforce. And then with the advent of Lightning, we started to have to learn Lightning pages and Lightning components. And then recently, in the past year and a half, is Lightning Web Components. And so one of the fundamental pieces of that would be JavaScript. And so Salesforce is trying to make themselves more accessible to the masses of Salesforce developers. And one way they do that is they leverage JavaScript, because there's a lot of JavaScript developers out there. So there's still a lot of other tools that you'll need to know, such as Apex and how to write a test class, for example. And this relates more to those that want to go down the developer path or potentially architect, more like a technical architect. But JavaScript is something that's very useful and very helpful in order to build on the platform. So I think it is instrumental to your success as a developer. And if you have any of that experience, that will help you to get over the learning curve going down the path of learning Apex and Lightning Web Components. All right, so great question, Kshagra. And then we got another question. Let's see, anonymous attendee. So anonymous, What are the odds that their name is anonymous? Anyway, I doubt that's your real name, but that'd be cool. All right, it's kind of like John Q. Public on the fake credit cards. There's probably someone named John Q. Public, and he's got a lot of credit cards. So anonymous has no Salesforce background. And I'm just messing with you, anonymous. Don't worry about it. So I'm currently enrolled in the Salesforce admin bootcamp. Pretty overwhelming. So this is, I think that's a Salesforce thing. I don't keep up a whole lot with what Salesforce is doing on their own training thing, but I have heard of the admin bootcamp, I think. My plan when I'm done is to move over to your courses on Udemy or through your website to progress towards my admin. Am I on the right path? Thank you. So anonymous, I think what you're referring to is Salesforce's own bootcamp. I do have a live class that I'm teaching right now. I'm currently through 4 of the 9 weeks of that. And I'll be, and I probably should add a link to the wait list for the next live session there for those that may be interested. Let me put that in there. So this is the live Salesforce training waiting list. Let's see, where'd my chat go? Here we go. So this is a link, and this will put you on the wait list, and I'll be opening up registration soonish, potentially around, I don't know, maybe Black Friday. We've still yet to finalize things, but the next live training session for me will be in January, and we're looking at a couple of different tracks, like a fast track, and then one for complete beginners. Now, I get the overwhelm, anonymous, as far as trying to just learn. And you can always work through my content at your own pace. It could be while you're going through this boot camp or at another time. Now, over my shoulder is the logo for Mike Wheeler Media Plus, and that is my own learning platform. I'll give you a link to that as well. So you've got a few options. Anonymous mentioned my content on the Udemy platform, and that's where I started, where many of you, if you have had exposure to me in the past, that may be where you're aware of me, but let me put a link to Mike Wheeler Media Plus. And so that is all my courses for $9.99 a month or $99 a year, which in essence, if you pay for a year, you get 2 months free. Now, the reason that my own platform is important and different from Udemy is that it does give you access to my 30 plus courses that I've created. Gives you the ability to search across all the lessons that I've ever created. So if you're looking for specific terminology, you can find all the different places that I've ever talked or taught on that. So that may have been in my admin course, classic or admin lightning series, may have been in platform app builder, may have been in advanced admin or sales cloud or service cloud. And so the search functionality is very helpful. So, but if you have it on Udemy, it's great to take it there as well. It's kind of a different experience on the 2 different platforms, but same courses. So if it's on the Udemy platform, you'll find it on Mike Wheeler Media Plus. And then there's a few things that you'll find nowhere else other than on my platform, such as a replay from a recent platform app builder live course that I did. That's only available on my platform. So with that said, so Rajat has a question, do we need the admin cert first before going for technical architect cert? So that would be the architect path, and I'll show you what that consists of, and that's on Trailhead. So if you go to Trailhead and then certifications, and then the second one over is the architect overview. I'm going to put this in the chat and then share my screen. So let's share this. So going down the architect path, there's this triangle here. There is no prerequisite for having the admin cert in order to become ultimately a technical architect. A few words of warning is I believe that there's less than 300 certified technical architects on the entire planet at this time. This is a gargantuan undertaking, and you've got to know a lot of the platforms. So I think that even though it's not a requirement, I think in order to do well with some of these, like data architecture and management designer and sharing and visibility designer, some of these have to do with the guts of security, as well as on this other side, the identity and access management designer, it's probably a good idea to have that admin cert. It says that it's optional, okay, down here. And so there's these 2 different paths on this triangle. You can, and the reason that this exists is because there was this gargantuan chasm between getting admin certified and becoming a technical architect. And so Salesforce is trying to provide a path for those poor souls, trying to make that jump over the Grand Canyon of all this knowledge that you need to have in order to become ultimately a technical architect. So they're trying to get you to go down one of these two paths to attain one of the domain architect certifications. And so with that comes these specializations down below. So I encourage you to target one or the other to set your sights here, either application architect or system architect. And then once you've attained one of these, then go to the other side and start knocking out these other certifications to then attain the other domain architect designation. Then you're ready to start pursuing the technical architect. You've got to appear before a board. This is not for the faint of heart, and it costs a lot of money. I think it's like $6,000. But on the other side, if you do become a technical architect, just having that certification, you will not have a problem getting jobs, and you will be making over $200,000 a year. That is the average salary for technical architects, is well north of $200,000 a year. Okay, so it is a goal to aspire to. I don't know enough of the platform to even begin to pursue that. I know the fundamentals of the platform really well, and I've thought about getting some of these certifications. I think it's time for me to start taking some more certification exams because there are so many now. So maybe I'll be inspired to do that. All right. So any tips to search for volunteer jobs for Salesforce? So this is from Ketke, good question. So there's a few resources. Let me show you. Show, don't tell, right? So catchafire.org is one of my go-tos. I have actually done some volunteer projects in the past. And so catchafire.org, find a project, and how do you search this? Skills. Oh, search all. So if you do a search, let's do a search for Salesforce. And here's where, if there's any project, you're all going to see this at the same time. So there's 6 Salesforce projects here, and some of these are training related, some are CRM, audit, or customer database. These all look the same. So it looks like these different nonprofits have been on here and seen what other nonprofits are doing. And they go, oh, we need help with that too. And so this is a 4 to 8 week project where you're evaluating Salesforce for donor management, et cetera. And so let me just slap this link in there in the chat. Okay, where'd my chat go? Keep losing my chat. Anywho, so that's Catch a Fire, and there's other volunteer websites. I'm forgetting them at this point, but I do have, I know where I've got more resources on this. There's always a resource. Is my free Salesforce Career Paths course. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. There's a section in that free course of the Career Paths course related to how to find volunteer projects. So I'll leave you with that for other resources that then if you can land a volunteer project, that's something you can put on your resume, and that's like gold. That really opens up the spigot of leads for you once you have experience. And I think that experience trumps certifications even, and this is coming from an online teacher that teaches certifications. It's one thing to be certified, but if you have no experience, you're just going to be told you don't have enough experience. But if you have experience but no certification, you just simply say, I'm working towards getting certified and I've done this. Main thing in the interview is you need to have stories to tell. Stories need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and to get out, so that then when they ask you what's the most complicated thing you've ever done on the platform, you have a story to tell. You have something to share, and rather than saying you did something on Trailhead. Okay, a lot of great questions. All right, Anonymous again. Hi, Anonymous. Good to see you again. Has Salesforce grown from providing a cloud CRM for an organization to like a platform where you can actually build and grow your startup? Yes. So it did start out as a CRM, customer relationship management, and then several years ago, opened up the platform to be able to be customized for specific solutions. So you can run a startup on Salesforce And I do somewhat run my own startup on Salesforce, and you'll see that on my website for the contact form is a web-to-case form. And then I've also implemented that on some other websites that I've done recently that are integrated with Salesforce so that when something comes in, it doesn't fall through the cracks, okay? Malini said, you mentioned about taking maintenance exam on existing Salesforce certification on your recent call. So how often do we have to take that maintenance exam? Does this apply to all other Salesforce certifications other than Salesforce admin? So I am still sharing my screen. So let me go into Trailhead. All right, so then under credentials, maintain certifications, here is the scoop on that. So for admin, the maintenance is once a year. And for most of these now, it's once a year, but for others, it may be more frequent. And so here's the release cycle and the different certifications that have maintenance exams that are available. So you'll see admin is here, and this is due by April of 2021. If you have Platform App Builder, which I have, that would be for the release cycle of winter 21, which becomes available. This particular maintenance module on Trailhead is not available until December 9th. And then you have a full year to complete it. So it's once a year, it's free, and it's on Trailhead. Now there's a few other notes down here, but let me just give you this link in the chat and you can peruse that. And let me just type the answer here, and I'll put it in the chat as well for everyone else. So there's that. All right, so, and then back on, Keki's asking about searching by location. I think you can search by location for volunteer projects, but I think in the age of COVID and quarantine that a lot of these places don't expect for you to be local to them, and they are willing to entertain a remote volunteer. Now, with these remote opportunities, at least through Catch a Fire, you still have to go through an interview process. You need to create an account, you need to present yourself professionally, and if they have multiple applicants, you've got to set yourself apart from the competition, all right? This also gives you interview practice. Now, it seems weird to interview and to fight for a volunteer opportunity. You're actually competing against others to give away your time. But those of you that understand that this is a building block to your career and will pay back many times over in the future because you're gaining that experience, I do see that there is some hesitancy among some people saying, well, I'm not going to give away my time. Well, I'm like, well, good luck with that attitude. That's just, you know, really limited thinking is really cutting off some opportunities. But I did speak about how I've taken a couple of volunteer opportunities. One was in Seattle, Washington, and one was in Oakland, California. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, so that wasn't an issue, okay? All right. So Rajat is asking how much time it takes to get admin certified and how fast can I start looking for a job? All right, so this is going to blow some minds. Start looking for a job today, even if you're just starting. Doesn't hurt. I encourage people to start trying to get a job before they're certified. I know a lot of people landed their first job in the Salesforce ecosystem well before they were certified. The ideal situation is to get paid to learn, and you can land jobs without a certification. The main thing you've got to be able to do is to tell stories about things you've done on the platform, and that's called making your own experience. I've talked about this at length in the past, but in a nutshell, you've got to find some way in your life to implement Salesforce. That may be managing your kids' soccer schedule, or the inventory management of your groceries, or your HOA for your local neighborhood election. These are all things that you can do in order to build something on the platform, or find a volunteer opportunity, build an app that you use for tracking your mileage. You can Google Mike Wheeler mileage tracker and you'll find that on YouTube. It's a 12-minute video I did off the top of my head just to show how quickly you can build an application in Salesforce. It took me 10 to 12 minutes while recording live to build a mileage tracker. That's something that you can use on your phone then. If you build it on the platform, then it's mobile friendly as well. So how long does it take to get certified? 3 to 6 months is average. Don't get discouraged by seeing the people that like to flex online that they pass 7 certifications in 6 days. Who cares? It's not a competition, and a lot of those people have probably been studying longer than that, or they are using or somehow got the exam questions and cheated, quite frankly. You cannot learn the concepts and fundamentals of the platform well enough to be functional on a job in just a few days. It takes several months. And so I think that slow and steady wins the day more than the rabbit and the hare just trying to speed through and set land speed records. It's more if you can devote 30 minutes to an hour or two a day of studying and learning, then over the span of, let's say, the next 90 to 100 days, you're in the of being really ready to go. Now, if you can dive in deeper than that and devote more hours, that does accelerate your pace. But you could start looking for jobs now. You may think, well, the market's saturated or no one will hire me. There are so many people that I know personally that were hired because they showed an aptitude for learning and a willingness to learn. And there are people out there that I can point you to that I've interviewed that, and myself as well. My first job I landed, I was the least experienced of all the candidates, but I exuded the confidence of being able to figure stuff out. The person on the other side of the desk saw that I had a higher ceiling than people with a lot of experience, but with a bad attitude. So showing that willingness to learn and to figure things out and not being intimidated by that, you may land somewhere to where you then have some runway. You'll have a certain amount of runway or a honeymoon period in the new job to get up to speed and to learn. And that's what I call getting paid to learn. You're never going to be an expert in all things Salesforce. It's humanly impossible. And even if you were just spending every waking moment learning the platform, it's growing at a rate that humans can't keep up with. And so that's why you do have to kind of niche down based on your past experience and your interests and your abilities, okay? All right, more questions. Oh, goody, here we go. Mita is asking, I'm trying to balance my Salesforce career aspirations with my other passions, such as creative writing. Do you have any suggestions on how to have a flexible Salesforce career? My screen just updated. Okay. Do you have any suggestions on how to have a flexible Salesforce career that is not a full-time job, something entrepreneurial or part-time? Good question. All right. So I think you can do a mixture of this, Mita. So you're looking for part-time work to where it doesn't consume your life and you want to do creative writing as well. So a few things in that are not readily apparent but stand out to me is that in any job that you look at, let me see if I can find this since I'm still sharing my screen, is that any of these jobs that you look for or any of these paths that you look at, and my screen is kind of getting wonky here, probably because I've been sharing too long. So as soon as I hover over, it goes away. Notice that. Let me just stop sharing and just forget about it. All right, so when you look at the different roles that you can fulfill inside of Salesforce in the ecosystem and on Trailhead, they've got different roles and day in the life of breakdowns for admin and technical architect and developer and business analyst. And they have these different bubbles. I was trying to show that and it wasn't working, so I gave up. But there's different bubbles with what are the percentages of these different skills, soft skills and hard skills that these different jobs require. The one that is the most sought after skill in any of these areas in the ecosystem is communication, okay? So as a creative writer, I presume that you can communicate. Now that means a whole host of things that you can do that can lead to part-time work. So here's what I would do as a communicator that has interest in Salesforce, but doesn't want it to consume his or her time to its fullest, would be to be out there blogging and writing articles on LinkedIn, getting involved in Twitter, building a website. This is getting into personal branding. Now, on this website, then you can implement a web to lead form that hooks into your own free Salesforce account. Anyone that's interested in talking to you about some side work or wanting you to do some maintenance on or put you on a retainer for 10 hours or 20 hours a month, these would be people that would reach out to you individually because they see you active in the community. That could either be at meetups locally or virtually. This could be even chatting on the Dreamforce session that's happening later today and people like your commentary or whatever. Or if you go live on Facebook, if you're writing articles on LinkedIn. And there are some part-time jobs. Typically, you will not be approached with those by recruiters. I have a little bit of that, but I've really invested a lot of time in personal branding to the point of having this over my shoulder, you know. And so that's not typical for a lot of people, but you can raise the visibility and awareness of your existence by creating a website and being socially active on social networks, and then just have a link there for the services that you provide. You can get your resume out there, and I tend to see more gig work or part-time work for developers just because there's such a shortage there. Not everyone can code. And so the supply and demand ratio is reflected in the higher rates as well. So if you do have the ability to code, then that increases your odds of finding part-time work. But you can always approach these local companies to you, or even those in the industry that you're in, and introduce yourself as a consultant or a specialist. You can also go down the path of starting your own partner company inside of the Salesforce partner ecosystem and become a registered partner. That's like $1,000 a year, and Salesforce will start sending you some leads. And if you also befriend people inside of these partner companies, potentially that are local to you, they want clients at a certain size. And so you might just approach them and say, hey, I'm starting my own thing. I'm fine with 5 hours a month or 10 hours a month. If you have some projects that are too small for you, I'd appreciate a referral. I've been referred things by local partner companies that are larger, and I've sent things to them. There's been things that have come my way. People know me because of what I do, and they go, hey, Mike, can you work on this? And it's some massive project. And so I send that off to a partner company. I probably should have gotten a percentage, I might add, but on the inverse, they sent me some smaller things that I could feel comfortable with trying to incorporate into my busy life. So hope that helps. So Ramakumar is saying, how do I copy the links posted in the chat? I'm not able to select and copy them. What you might do is just click on them, have it open up the page, and then copy it from there. I think I'll be posting the replay, and I'll include probably on my website the list of links or resources mentioned in this, so that I'm recreating the chat basically with the links there. So watch for that when you get a communication about the replay. All right. Rahesh is saying, I am new to IT, so I chose Salesforce admin, and I'm done with all basics of the classic app of admin. I'm preparing for certification. How much difference between learning and real job? Can I start applying for a job? So it's a great question. Totally different in the real world. So when you're studying for certification, you've got laser-like focus, put the blinders on, you're just studying for a test. And then it's kind of like the written test for driving a car versus the driving test. There's one that's in theory, it's like, okay, this child knows what a stop sign means. You know, I just say child, not referring to you, no offense, but just a 15 or 16-year-old that's going for their learner's permit. You want to know that they know what a merge sign looks like. Now, when you take them on the road for the road skills assessment, and if you remember when you learned to drive a car, it felt really foreign and different. And that's where the rubber meets the road, and where you're hit with the reality of that you're fielding requests that don't have a clear-cut answer. And so you've got to know how to do searches and be able to figure things out. I'm just noticing how my beard, the lighting on my beard looks like I've got like this weird sideburns. It's pretty groovy actually. So I need more light right here and less up here. But anyway, I need makeup to hide my shiny bald head. But anyway, so it's a different experience, but you can go ahead and start applying for jobs. And the worst possible thing that happens in a job interview is that you're told a word that starts with an N and ends with an O. It's a 2-letter word that we need to learn to accept. It's no. And you're already getting that answer if you're not applying for jobs. Now, if you're brand new, you're just starting out, who cares? You're getting your name out there. You're not going to burn bridges. It's not going to put some scarlet letter by your name. If you interview with someone and you're exposed as a newbie, as a fraud, you know, if you have that imposter syndrome that we all have, and just know that I've had imposter syndrome. Every time I go live, I have imposter syndrome. I'm like, who am I to be talking? But it's like, okay, you look around and you're looking for someone to do these sorts of things. No one's doing it. So like, well, I might as well do it and see how it goes. And you don't fail, you learn and you move forward. And this sideburn is really distracting me. It's like a mutton chop, like, oh, groovy, you know. It was like back in the hippie days or something. So anyway, I'm like so distracted by that. But the point is that you've got a couple of goals. You really have one goal, okay? The one goal is launching a career in the cloud with Salesforce as the vehicle to get you there. Now, what puts kind of gas in that engine that gets you there are certifications. And I've seen that there's so much interest in people getting certified because that does speak a lot to those that are looking to hire you. But as I mentioned before, it's experience that trumps certifications. So just spend time on the platform. The more time on platform, the better. And I have discovered students of mine that are failing to pass certifications and failing to get jobs. And I ask, well, how many reports have you created? Well, I've created none. And they're more of a passive learner. They're not engaged. They're not doing Trailhead. They're not following along with me in my live or my on-demand training. The idea of everything I do is that you're following along and doing the work. And then in the spare time as well, you're getting curious and poking around on the platform and building applications just for the fun of it, you know, and that could be managing your fantasy football team. I've seen people that are in basketball recreational leagues putting their stats inside of Salesforce and then figuring out ways of importing that in from spreadsheets and taking in the data from other teams, and it grows into something. And any application starts out as this small thing, and then you just wash, rinse, repeat, and you add on more complexity and layers. And you end up building something that is pretty substantial when you look back on it. Okay, so just start looking and start trying to get some interviews, and you can do that in the context of volunteer opportunities and or paid work. The ideal situation is to get paid to learn. There's no harm in that. You do want to be honest in representing yourself and the level that you're at, but just showing an exuberance for learning and a confidence in being able to figure things out. If you don't have that confidence, then work on that. Work on the communication skills. If you can communicate and tell a story, that will serve you well, more than having another certification behind your name. You can always get the certifications later as well. So all right. So I think we are over an hour now. So that is a good time had by all, I'm sure. And I do appreciate everyone in joining in. And many of you have registered for future dates of this. This is a weekly series. And if you've not registered for future dates, I want to encourage you to do that. I'll put that in the chat as well. It's just the same link that you registered the first time. And I noticed that the numbers kind of trailed down in the coming weeks, but this is something that will or should grow over time. And we are still working the kinks out on how all this works and the logistics of it. This is a new thing in addition to my podcast. But I just put in the chat the link to where you can register for subsequent sessions. And let me give you my podcast link, which is irrelevant if you've not hit that before. It's all about helping you to find the intersection of essential and attainable. And that has a lot to do with Salesforce as well. And so anyways, thank you so much for your time. And I was just checking the Q&A, there's some notes there, but they were all just thank yous. And thank you for joining me. And so until then, we'll meet up next week, same time, same place. And until then, I'll see you in the cloud.